All right, everybody, you're looking at it. I know we had a bit of a delay, had some Schlitz beer going on in the real world, so we had to postpone to today. And it won't be another one of those hour and a half streams. This one will be kind of shorter. We're gonna be having our man Dan here covering calendar spreads part 2. He's gonna give us a brief on the Delta Greek and how it functions within calendar spreads. And kind of depending on when we finish there, I don't know if all of you saw it. I wrote out that article for Unusual Whales about those China trades. Specifically, the three that I wrote about were Tiger. They're not called Tiger anymore. What the hell are they called? What are they called? Something. TIGR. Tiger. Up FinTech Holdings is what they're called now. But I knew them as, what was it, Tiger Direct, back when they were memeing around. I think they opened like a broker. Tiger, see if I can find it actually. Tiger Brokers. Yeah, that's exactly what it was. But Tiger, TIGR, and Pinduoduo were two of the big ones. I know some folks caught some coinage on FXI as well. Baba had some pretty big trades. I was going to push out a flow tracking video today on them, but they kind of kept going, and none of the positions that I was following closed their position. And so I kind of want to see how they wrap up today before I put a pin and a nice little ribbon on those trades. But we might take a look at those if we have a little time at the end here. But aside from that, assuming we get to it, I don't have a whole hell of a lot to cover today, Dan. So if you wanna go full string swinging into
You got it.
into this baddie of a put calendar spread, that'd be sick. Let's knock
Cool.
her out the park.
Yeah, that sounds good. Thanks, buddy. Let me go ahead. Slideshow looks like nice full screen, right?
Yep, but I should probably turn your screen on. There we go. All right, we're golden.
Okay, great. So today we're going to talk about. So we're in the context of the put calendar spread structure, right? We're on part 2, and what we're going to talk about is the delta associated with a put calendar spread or a call calendar spread, because they both they're both going to work the same way. They're just the put calendar spread as described in this presentation is going to be situated below the spot price, and your call analog is going to be situated above spot price. And in my kind of crude interactive delta graph example, I picked calls because I just love variety. And when we're talking about the put side, there are some more interesting implied volatility effects that we'll cover. I'm sure, in like part 3 and part 4 when we talk about implied volatility and Vega inside put calendar spread.
Which I'm
But
pretty
let's go.
excited about, because the whole concept of, I don't know, it's just theta for me has always been that negative looking over your shoulder effect on your options price. And so I'm really curious to see that episode of this calendar spread breakdown, because looking at a
Yeah.
position with positive theta messes with my head just thinking about it a little bit.
Yeah, right, exactly. Like when it moves, when it moves in your direction, you do get like the net of the two options together, right? Because it is, it's two. It's a one put on an earlier date that you have sold, and one put on a later date that you bought.
Right.
And the net on that can absolutely be positive, can be positive theta. And in fact, like I said before, in my first presentation, the what I would consider like standard teaching about calendars, that's actually something that they come right out of the gate with. Like if you're trading an at the money calendar, your theta profile is going to go positive very quickly compared to the out of the money calendar that we're that I'm presenting on here today. But when we talk about that, that concept will make it'll make more sense because you'll understand, well, theta is largest at the money, and when your calendar spread, put or call, is situated right at the money, that front contract, that short dated one that you have sold, is going to be losing, is time is going to be ticking forward at maximum, at like maximum impact to the premium on that contract. So there's
Right.
some really cool effects that you can see there. But today we're talking about delta. The hint of delta in this trade from my summary slide from last week is when I mentioned that calendars, that out of the money calendar spreads like we're talking about here, are positive gamma. And that what well, let's go ahead and let's just move right on here. So when I say a put calendar has positive gamma, this positive gamma is implying that we are net long options. Even though we sold one and we bought one, the extra time that we have by buying the further dated the further dated option protects us from some of the nastier effects that are associated with having short options on your book. So the fact that these are positive gamma means that a directional move in your favor is going to increase the delta of your overall position more rapidly. So the interesting thing about about delta in the context of a put calendar is that when we're trading them in this out of the money fashion, the value, the absolute value of the delta is going to grow and grow and grow until you get to the actual strike, until you get to the strike price. The one that you sold one and bought the other. So if price is moving in your direction and price finally gets there, that's where you're going to reach the maximum absolute value of delta. And I'm sorry to be bringing up math terms in this way, but technically delta is negative on puts because in this particular structure the value is going to increase when price of the underlying goes down, right? So you have negative delta is what that means, and in favor of not being confusing math wise and saying something gets more negative because that generally means like smaller, even though it's a good thing in this case, I just say the absolute value of the delta is going to continue to grow. Now, what's interesting about a calendar is that at a certain point, if price keeps on moving in your direction, maybe it moves a little too far in your direction, if you know what I mean, it goes past your strike, the delta can actually flip, and it can it can go from negative to positive. If it's on the call side, it can go from positive to negative. This doesn't. I promise you might hear that and think, well, it's going to blow up my position and it's going to go to negative, whatever, and I'm going to lose a bunch of money. That's not how it goes. It's just the result of like both strikes being in the money, but the front one is closer to expiration, so that one is more likely to expire in the money, right? So you're like the delta on that one has now gotten larger than has the absolute value of that short dated contract has now gotten larger than the back dated one. But um, long and short of it is that for most of the life of this trade, this put calendar spread, you're going to have negative deltas, and the absolute value of those negative deltas is gonna increase as the underlying price moves in your direction, and that actually leads us into just a general review of delta, which I think is a good refresher for everybody every now and again. So the the definition of delta is the change in an option's price, which is called premium, due to the change in the underlying security price. In equities, this is typically expressed as a decimal. Okay. So in your brokerage software, you'll see like something like 0.25 for a 0.25 delta call or put. But as you know, when you're like speaking about this, like when you're talking with somebody, it's not uncommon to hear them expressed as like the full whole number. So you might describe a 0.25 delta option as 25 delta. Just know that this very, very common, and it's the difference between like speaking and writing. I think it's a lot more common in writing to see 0.25 describing the delta, but in conversation, someone would probably describe it as 25 delta option. The standard equity multiplier for an option is 100. So we say ceteris paribus, which means everything else, all else equal. If the stock price like teleports in 0 seconds down $1, then a minus 0.25 delta put, right? I would call that like a 25 delta put, will see its premium increase by $25. Okay. You have a $1, minus $1 price change times minus 0.25, which is our delta, times the standard 100 equity multiplier for equity options, and that equals $25. And the intuitive way to talk about delta is in terms of like share equivalent, or what it like what it feels like to own that number of shares. So the the share equivalent of a 25 delta put, right, which is going to be negative, is going to feel like being short 25 shares of stock XYZ. Because if stock XYZ, if you were short 25 shares of stock XYZ and the price of XYZ went down by $1, your P&L, your profit and loss would be plus $25. You would have unrealized gain of $25. And that's exactly ceteris paribus what would happen with a 25 delta put as well. If the price drops by $1, then the option value, the premium associated with that option would be $25 higher because the price has moved $1 in your direction and it was a 25 delta option. But when we talk about gamma, we'll know that, okay, now that the price has moved down, now it has a bigger delta value. So the next dollar move in your direction is going to be even larger, right? And that's that has to do with what we would say is convexity, and why long options, long calls, and long puts can have such a handsome reward profile when price moves in your direction very quickly. And so the one last thing that I just wanted to riff on briefly for delta is something that I hear now and again, and that this is like some people would say that delta is the delta is the probability of the option in question expiring in the money. And I don't think that's actually I don't think that's true, right? Like if we were to do an empirical study and we were to look at all the 10 delta calls and the 10 delta puts, I suspect that those wouldn't finish in the money 10% of the time, right? Like I don't think I think that's a I think that's a good heuristic when you're talking about the at the money call or the at the money put, because the at the money call or at the money put is typically around 50 delta, and that makes logical sense, right? You have an at the money contract. It's like 50-50. You don't, 50-50 chance, is the price going to go up 1 penny or down 1 penny, and your option will finish in the money like by 1 penny or out of the money by 1 penny, right? Like that makes sense. If you think, if you're being a real first principles student of this stuff, the at the money delta of 50, that makes sense, right? There's like a 50-50 chance that option finishes in the money if it expires in the next 1 second or whatever like that. But um, towards the tails, right at the extremes, um, I think that that like probability of finishing in the money, I think it's I'm not sure that necessarily would hold true, right? I think it's better to just um, focus on delta as like your underlying price payoff multiple for a given trade. So you'll recall if you watched our review from last week, this slide was on here, and I wanted to show this slide again really quick here because it animates what the um, what the difference is on the what the P&L difference is for a put calendar spread as time goes by. So when the trade starts, um, it's right, it's like there's like a lower like tent kind of section here, and as time goes on, um the profit will become potentially quite large right at the strike that you sold and bought over those different times. And so the last thing I want to touch on when I say that a calendar spread that's designed in this way has convexity. What I mean by that is that um, over time the the delta convexity. What I mean by delta convexity is that over time, as we get closer to expiration, moves in the underlying are going to have a more drastic delta change on a calendar spread. And so what you're looking at right here is my like a crude illustration of that.
It's
Be gentle,
beautiful.
be
It's
gentle. It's
beautiful.
like I'm not a professional programmer by any stretch, right? So be easy on me here. And I chose this one. I know my consistency score is getting I'm getting an F for consistency in this one because I'm talking about a call calendar in this image, and we've been presenting on put calendars before, but I chose the call calendar to hopefully avoid any confusion about negative deltas here. And I think once you see what I'm just gonna point out as time goes on, is that um, that this same like visualization makes sense for a put calendar as well. And really, what this is just an expression. You'll recall from our last slide. Um, yeah. Okay. In this last slide, you saw how like over time this calendar like becomes closer and closer to a tent, right? And as you're approaching that strike and as time is going by, the the P&L, right, the profit associated with this structure is getting bigger and bigger. And there's a reason for that, and it's this like what I'm describing as delta convexity. Okay. So in this example here, right, our I think I have this set. I think the calendar, like the in this structure, it's like a 5825 SPX call calendar, which is out of the money by like, I don't know, like 2%, something like that, above spot price. Okay. And the way I had it set up is you're selling this upcoming Friday. and you're buying the Monday after this, after that, right? So like the only thing in between these two is the weekend. And the way that these numbers here work, right, from left to right is the is like it's the number of days just without a decimal point, right? So there's uh like the number of days until this front contract expires. Okay. So like when you initially put the trade on uh on Tuesday when I started building this, again, I know, don't, please be gentle with my horrible programming ability. Okay. When I put this together on Tuesday, there were like 4 days until that front contract expired. And then at 300, that's like 3 days left, right? I did this as it's like a percentage of day remaining until the option until the front option expires. Okay, so finally to the point that I want to illustrate here. So if you put this trade on Tuesday and then on Wednesday we get a real ripper in the S&P 500, and the S&P 500 like rallies up 2%. Um that's still great for this trade. This call calendar is going to appreciate in price pretty significantly, and you'll do pretty well, right? You'll make money on this trade. And the reason you'll make money is because your deltas are increasing, right? So if we if it's it is, yeah, okay, here's my like 3 days, right? It goes over time. And so over the day on Wednesday, your delta is increasing from, let's say, 0.025 to uh yeah, here, okay, is it's increasing to like point 0.4, at the maximum point here, it's 0.44, 0.41, right? It starts to, again, this is this like time effect that's taking place here, but you can see that the delta increases by 0.02 deltas. Okay, so we go from like 0.025 to 0.046 at the very highest, and that's if we get this excellent price appreciation on Wednesday because we bought it on Tuesday. Well, what happens if instead we actually get that price appreciation on Thursday? Okay. Well, on Thursday, our delta starts at approximately the same delta here. It's like a tiny bit higher because that front contract has collapsed in price more than the back contract has. So the delta is going to be just, the back contract has kept a tiny bit more long delta than and the front contract has collapsed a fair amount, or has collapsed more because it's expiring sooner. So here we start from like 0.27, and if we get that same move up towards 5,800, oh wow, what a difference, right? Now it's at 0.08 delta. And so what I'm trying to convey here is that this this price increase, like this 100 point SPX price increase, changes the delta on a call calendar on Thursday by like, I don't know, what is that, like 3x, something like that. Whereas on Tuesday, it kind of only doubled it, right? It only went up by 2x. So if you like get even closer to the wire, right? If you're riding even closer and you're letting it go, and it's on Friday, and that front contract is expiring today, and you get a nice rip up towards your 58, 58.25 point up here. Now we're really talking, right? This thing goes from 0.015 delta to 0.19. So at that point, that's more than 10x, right? That's like 15 or 14. That's like a 14x increase in deltas. And the price appreciation of this structure is going to be commensurate with its move in deltas, right? I said that back in my Mr. Nerd slide here. Right? Delta is like that. There's like an inextricable connection between delta and premium associated with the net position of your contract, right? So when you get when price moves in your direction as this front contract is getting closer and closer to expiration, smaller smaller moves in the underlying equity generate a larger increase in the value of your overall position. And what I think is really kind of magical about that is that you can like it kind of makes these from a psychological perspective, it kind of makes these easier to hold on to, right? Because if price is steadily moving in your direction, if you just hold an outright, if you just hold an outright out of the money call and you just like wait and price reaches your strike and the underlying price reaches your strike by expiration, like you made a good prediction, but you didn't make any money. You lost money, right? Because like you had to pay for that call and price didn't get high enough, right? It's like over time, you're constantly chasing it, like the value of the call, you're watching it psychologically and you were right in your prediction, but you're watching the value of your call, the premium on that call, like not go up when you were right. And the frustration, right? Like I can't, I, you don't have to tell me about that kind of frustration, right? It's aggravating to make a great forecast and then to have the trade actually lose money because your forecast was good, but price didn't go up enough or it didn't move up fast enough. Well, call calendars that are out of the money, if you're predicting a price increase, they do away with this problem. They're like the opposite of that. If price steadily moves in your direction, if you forecast a price increase and that like just perfectly graces its way up into that area, it's like the opposite of that effect, where you're just holding an outright call and you're watching it not appreciate, and you're cursing the market gods for giving you this forecasting gift and a position that's not making any money, right? The calendar trader is looking at his or her P&L and thinking, nice, right? Like this, the value of this is going up, commiserate with my forecasting skill. So to wrap up my delta section here with a little bow, what makes calendars unique and appealing is that your price prediction will pay off really well if the underlying kind of like cruises into the area where you're forecasting price to be, and you can see, right, it's that is demonstrably accurate because the delta on the net call calendar here becomes quite large as that front contract is expiring compared to when the trade starts. Like if SPX price just teleported up to 58.25, it'd be great. Your delta would increase, right? You would make some money on this trade, but if price just teleports up, you just want to own a call, or if it teleports down, you just want to own a put because you're going to get all the the positive effects that are built into that in that scenario. But if price just kind of glides in one direction, if it kind of just chops up and down into this range, then your payoff is going to be is going to be really, really good. And again, like I will lean on this from a theoretical angle by saying look at the growth of the delta. The delta change from like trade initiation at being, point 0.02, 0.023, relatively low, to being 10 times higher than that at expiration of the front contract where you're predicting price is going to go. So that is my that's the conclusion of my delta section. If there obviously if there are any questions, I'm happy to field them, and I am also working on a way to make this kind of visualization available, because I do think it helps kind of build up your intuition about how an option structure payoff um, is gonna work over time. So stay tuned. Hopefully we'll have something that helps express or that helps you see how this trade is gonna manifest on your P&L over time.
And we do have kind of like a little bit of we have a couple of the Greeks dashboards as well, and I know that there's more in development for
Oh yeah.
the delta exposure parts of that dashboard as well.
Yeah, that's right. From a single, you pick your, I guess here, we'll just go to
I'm gonna mute
show
myself
some.
for a minute. Dog's barking at Michaela getting home.
No, it's all good, man. Okay, so if you want to like go look at if you want to go look at like the profile of Delta, um, from unusualwhales.com, you go to resources, overview, you pick your your symbol. Let's look at the QQQ ETF, and then you can go to Greeks from the drop down here, and this will give you a distribution of the delta of calls and puts for the next five expirations. And this is just another nice visual representation about like the difference between something that is going to expire in 15 minutes from now, right? Which like is almost perfectly vertical up and down, as it slams from one delta to zero delta for like a call, and from zero delta to -1 delta for put, right? This is a nice reminder visualization of that, versus something that even expires tomorrow, which has a much more gentle kind of like slope direction for longer dated deltas. And I say that kind of jokingly because longer dated expiring tomorrow versus longer dated expiring in 15 minutes here. Okay, so um, if there are any questions, I'm happy to field them. I'm gonna do my best to try and bring that up. So just give me 1 second here. I made the mistake of looking at the YouTube while I was presenting it, and that didn't go so good. We went into feedback hell there. So let me load it up on my phone and see if there are any questions here.
All right, looks like no major questions so far. Now, I have like a small one, and this might get too far into the weeds, something that we'll have to hit. What I guess two-part question. I guess it's kind of a two-parter. What effect, if any at all, does gamma have on these put calendar spreads? And if there is a crucial effect, what's its relation to delta?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, I'll say this will be like a little appetizer, and then we'll talk more about it in hopefully like a nice short concise presentation like this one compared to some of my other rants about it. But the uh, the gamma is going to it's going to be like accelerate. So So the gamma is actually what's like accelerating these deltas higher and higher as um, as we march closer to the expiration of the front um, contract. So your net, like your net gamma on this, on a put or a call calendar that's out of the money in this way, is going to be is going to be positive, and it's going to move deltas in your, it's going to like, it's going to move the net, right, the combined long and short deltas of the position in your favor, faster and faster as we approach expiration. So the like you're still going to be net positive gamma over here, around like, day 0 and day 1 of your trade initiation. Um, and you can see like there are like the leaps and bounds, so to speak, right? The delta increases. They're not really that fast as price moves up, right? From this like $10 SPX change, gives you an increase of 0.03 deltas, which means like the gamma there is relatively small, and it even starts to slow down here as you get closer to the long short strike. Whereas when you get over here closer to expiration, okay, well now a $10 change from 57.30 to 57.40 changes the net delta of the position by 0.015, which I know doesn't seem like a ton, like we're talking about these tiny fractions and everything, but you got to remember SPX is a $5,700 product, right? So like one delta is like valuable, is a valuable thing to have on an SPX, um, on an SPX contract, right? You cherish every delta you get, um, on when you're trading the SPX, because it's such a large product, right? So like, take a step back and remember, oh hey, I'm trading a $5,700 stock. So when it moves 2 deltas, that's pretty good.
Makes sense. I'll
Yeah.
give folks just a minute here. See if they have any questions as well. Anything at all, folks, feel free to ask. That's what we are here for. That's what these presentations are for. And
Yeah.
they'll all be saved and housed on our channel permanently. So if you
And
don't
I
get to
know this is
anything,
like a thinker, right? I know that this is it's kind of complex. There are lots of moving parts. So I just hope over the duration of this presentation on calendar spreads that I'm able to help build up some understanding and some confidence to experiment with horizontal type of spread, rather than always just thinking like vertical on the
right.
option montage. Yeah.
So YKK asks, is it best to exercise the long position when it comes in the money? And what is the best situation to exit the strategy?
Okay. Yeah. Excellent questions. Okay. So in this particular example, with the SPX, I like the SPX is a cash settle product, and it's also a European style option. So you never have to worry about early assignment or anything like that, because it can't be, assignment doesn't happen until expiration, right? It's only allowed at expiration. So SPX is kind of a special case here. If you were dealing with like a single name equity or SPY, QQQ, something like that, generally generally speaking, you would want to uh, exit at at your um, at your strike price, right? That's like ideal place to exit. But I say that, and gosh, I hate to invite discretion into this sort of thing, but I would say you want to you want to use your forecast as a guide, because with a calendar spread, if the underlying price just like rips right past your strike, um, there's a time where you're actually gonna where you'll wind up with kind of a loser, right? Which can be annoying. That that price moved too much, but you can use your forecast as a guide, right? I like am almost cringing at hearing myself saying this, but like it's kind of a discretionary, yeah, God, it's kind of a discretionary decision. I would argue that you like I would argue that in an ideal world, you want to always be able to trade at least two, right? Like 2 units of calendars. So you would technically have 4 contracts, 2 spreads, and you would initiate the trade and get your fill. And like the first thing you could do is set a limit sell at maybe um, like 150% uh, profit, right? Like the value of the spread has increased by say 150%, because that's not unreasonable or unachievable if price begins to move in your direction um, relatively quickly. As far as exercising the long, that's an excellent question, because in theory, if you were trading this on I don't know, one of these China names that just went ballistic, PDD. Okay, if you had a calendar on PDD at 110 and it rallied up to 150, well, now you're short a call that's $40 in the money, right? And you have assignment risk there, right? You're at risk of needing to, or rather, delivery risk, I guess technically. You're at risk of needing to deliver 100 shares of PDD, um, and the market price of those is 150, and you promise to deliver at 110, and that could be an unpleasant loss right there. But what I suspect would happen, or at least what I hope would happen, is that if you happen to be away from your screens, and you have a calendar on and you have one of these like PDD situations where the underlying price goes way past your strikes. Um, my hope would be that your broker like um, has the understanding, probably after communicating you with about this, that you don't want to be forced to deliver those shares. And so what would happen is that, um, should an early assignment come your way and you are obliged to deliver 100 shares of PDD, your broker would exercise the long call to give you those 100 shares, and have you deliver that way, right? So you don't have to. So the next day you don't wind up short 100 shares of PDD and dealing with the margin implications of that. So I would say, uh, on a case where your strikes just get blown away and the underlying rallies far beyond where you had forecasted the price to move, um, you'd want to have your broker um, exercise the long leg to cover your obligation to deliver shares on the short leg.
Makes
Good
sense to
question though.
me. That is a good
Yeah,
question. And I
yeah,
mean,
right. I mean, hopefully it doesn't
spreads is
happen,
a
but
little bit. I mean, that's kind of just one of the bonus points. You know, you can trim calls, you can trim puts, but if you're in naked, you don't have anything offsetting your loss potential. And with these spreads, you not only have an offset for loss potential, but you have the option to capitalize on, especially in the case of like a call calendar, you have the option, if well managed, to capitalize on being able to close out one of those legs, and boom, the long leg of that spread is now right back in the same realm as a naked call to begin with. You just had that protection at the
my
beginning.
man, yeah, okay. We'll do like a special one. We'll do a special one of these where like I rant and rave about the second chance. Um, you know what I mean. I don't want to push our time too much, right? But I very explicitly, I named the second chances there by name, okay? And this is like I'm not here to say, oh, just get lucky, oh, things will go your way, blah blah blah, right? Like you know, you set your risk when you take the trade in the first place,
Yeah.
right? You like that you set your risk just because um you set your risk at trade initiation, okay? But like suppose you've got you've got something like you recently, okay,
Yeah.
where price just went wild. And actually there was some interesting flow in you earlier in August. So if you were a schemer, you could have done like an August September call calendar and you on something like very far out of the money, like maybe the 25 strike. I don't know why I would have any specific knowledge of this particular trade. It's just all coming to me, right? And man, nothing could happen in you for a while, and you'd be like, oh well, right? Like swing and a miss, right? This a trader who put that on might say, "Ooh, how unfortunate. Nothing happened in you. The the flow that was my signal, right? That was part of my my trade strategy to get some risk on in this direction. Shoot, right? Like just didn't wind up working out. On to the next one. You you still have that long inventory when the front contract expires, and that some would call that a lotto ticket, second chance, whatever you want to call it. You continue to have long inventory on your book. You can't lose more money on those. You set the risk when you paid the debit and open the trade. And so if all of a sudden for some reason you price starts to rip from like 15 to 22 or 23, you might end up with like a this trader maybe made some money on that because he just happened to have long U inventory at the 22 or 23. I don't remember. This trader doesn't remember what it was, but it's just luck. You're holding a convex instrument that you got a reduced price on, and you can just warehouse that thing, right? Just leave it on your book and expose make your luck surface area bigger. I don't know how else to describe it, right? Because you can't lose more money by just letting those things go to zero too. And you potentially can make a lot more money if you get lucky, right? And I think anyone would agree that it's a good idea to expose yourself to lucky things going in your favor.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll do a better presentation on their a lotto ticket when the front one expires, right? But that's kind of the point, you
But
know?
it's kind of like an educated lotto in a way.
Yeah.
Which
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you got it for a discount. You bought it, you bought it when you had this view that the price was going to increase to some level, and you got it on discount, and the amount of discount you got it was however much in credit you received for selling that front contract, right?
right.
I'll take that. I,
Take that all
a
day.
trader would take, that's like a reasonable way. And again, like I said, it's tricky, but think it through. You like that long contract that's further dated. You can't lose more money by having that sit on your portfolio, right? Look, by all means, if there's something better you can do with that money to close the position, take your money back and do something better with it. But also, you cannot lose more money than the debit you paid to open this position because price didn't move in your direction. I know it seems tricky, and in your broker, depending on your broker, the software, it might display like when the front leg when the front leg dies and goes away, right? Expires for nothing. The back leg might have experienced significant price depreciation, right? It might be down 80%, and you're going to see that red sitting in your brokerage platform, but who cares, right? You know you know that you paid 30 cents to get that trade on, and even though now it's showing the back leg as like it's worth 15 cents and it's down from a dollar or whatever, you just got to, you know, just know that that's not you're not riding this thing down to zero because you're being a knucklehead, right? You have free inventory that might pay off, right? Do the best thing with your money that you can, you know, but like sometimes just having something luckily happen to you can turn a trade big green because the front because the front leg of a calendar went to zero because the price didn't move as fast as you forecasted.
I don't think
Good
anybody
question.
would
Yeah,
complain either.
yeah, yeah. Good stuff.
Right. I don't see any new questions. I think we are able to send our folks here off into the evening. We'll be getting right back onto our Tuesday schedule next week. And obviously, day and time can be flexible. So if we start getting feedback that other times, other days work a little bit better, we're happy to adapt. But I think we had a good turnout, a couple of good questions today. And I love to see it. So I hope you guys find these helpful. I'll be able to get this edited and published into tomorrow. So if you came in late, don't worry about it. It'll be right here waiting for you. And outside of that, I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. You got one more day before it's party time. And use it wisely, folks. Thanks for kicking it with us.
Yeah. Thanks.
Take care, everybody.